Ocean Energy Management, otherwise known as BOEM, is in charge of offshore energy, and that includes offshore oil and gas. Every 5 years, they have to put out a program saying how many places they're going to put up for lease sales to various things. So when you're looking at that lease sale, they have to do an environmental impact statement that allows people to weigh how much benefit they will get out of it economically versus what the environmental impacts are. The whole issue in a nutshell is how much oil is worth how much money versus how much oil is how much risk, and what do we value more in it, what is our tipping point. And this is one of those things where community members really should have a huge say about what their tipping point is, because they're the ones we're going to be living. So that's one of the things that I think really needs to happen when we're looking at this EIS and this supplemental EIS coming out for Lease Sale 258, because Lease Sale, the reason they're having to do a supplemental is that the first one didn't do a good enough job in at least 3 areas. The fact that it's being sent back means that it needs more work, and not only does that work need scrutiny, I would argue that some of the work that has already gone through also needs a little more of a tough look at it. Under the National Environmental Policy Act, not Protection Acts, the job of an EIS is to inform people so that you can weigh the consequences, the potential risks versus the potential benefits. And you don't have to make the most environmentally friendly decision, but you have to know what your trade-offs are. But that means you've got to be honest about what the potential impacts are. And if you can't even say what those are, you're in trouble. And one of the big problems that I have seen and that other scientists have seen is that in environmental impact statements, a lot of the work does not go, that a lot of the science that people are relying on does not go through academic peer review the way other publications do. And so all of these decisions are being made on numbers that nobody's checked. And they can be off by orders of magnitude. So I have gone through and redone the math on a lot of environmental impact statements, particularly in regard to spills. And I've done that for not just Alaska, but other places. And so the reason I came in on Cook Inlet was when the EIS for Lease Sale 258 came out, was all right, we want to take a look and see whether or not they did their math right. And the answer is absolutely, I'll take a look. And I have yet to see one that has come out, as far as I'm concerned, as thoroughly and correctly as it could. So this is the red line with the dots on it is oil production in millions of barrels out of Cook Inlet. And then the bar graph behind it is the number of spills per year. So years going across the bottom of the graph. And really what this graph is, the reason I wanted to show you is you can see that there's a pretty good correlation of the number of spills being higher when the oil production is higher, and coming down when the oil production is lower. We are all completely shocked by that. This graph shows the number of billion barrels of oil to be produced in Cook Inlet based on what has been approved so far. So these are leases that are already approved. So Lease Sale 244 was already approved. It would have had, and if we multiply the amount of oil that was potentially going to be produced there times the spill rate, we get a predicted number of spills. If we add that amount of oil with the amount of oil that could potentially be produced in Lease Sale 258, we get a different spill rate. We get a higher spill rate because we've got a bigger amount of oil. The environmental impact statement for Lease Sale 258 says that the probability of a large spill is something like 19%, based on the fact that they expect 0.21 of these spills. But again, that does not take into account the fact that that's not the only place that a large spill could come from in Cook Inlet. That is just an additional piece when we put it's one of several pieces that can all contribute. And so we look at a cumulative analysis. We look at Lease Sale 244 by itself, because that one happened prior to Lease Sale 258. We look at Lease Sale, then we've got one value. If we look at going up to Lease Sale 244 and 258, we've got a probability of at least one large spill getting close to 40%. If we add in that next one, and then all these, we're well over 70% as a probability of having at least one large spill. That's not great. And it's not disclosed. That part is not part of any of the analyses or quantitative stuff that's in the EIS or the oil spill risk analyses that have been prepared for Lease Sale 258. And I would really love to see if they are in the supplemental environmental impact statement. And if they're not, to me, that is a huge lack. And I bring that up for a couple of reasons. One is that, as I said before, an environmental impact statement has a couple of jobs. One is to inform decision makers and stakeholders of what's going on so that people can make these choices. But the other is that you can point out where there are strengths and weaknesses and how well this math has been done and whether or not you have actually informed people. And so, as much as the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management cutting out stakeholders from a comment period and being able to do anything about this, when they don't have that comment period or allow people to respond, they also aren't giving people like me, the nerds who actually have the time and energy to read these things in detail and track down the math and actually check the numbers to say, hold on, you didn't do your algebra right. There's all the things that people do in Alaska that are really important. They've got kids and dogs and whatever else to take care of. They don't have time to read a 700-page environmental impact statement and then go and read the appendices and then track down whether or not the initial data set was correct. That's crazy. The people who do that are people like me. So that's kind of where I am.